This is a special edition of First Alert 4, the St. Louis Mayoral Debate 2025. Thank you for joining us. I'm First Alert 4 investigator David Amilati. And joined live with us now, Mayor Tashara Jones and Alderwoman Kara Spencer. Thank you both for spending some time with us tonight. As you can see, there are no podiums. The candidates have agreed to join us for a 30-minute discussion on the things that matter to St. Louisans. First, with less than 3 weeks until Election Day, a look at your candidates. Mayor Tashara Jones running for her second term. Before she was sworn in as the first black woman to serve as St. Louis's mayor, Jones served as the city's treasurer from 2013 to 2021. Alderwoman Kara Spencer was elected to the Board of Aldermen back in 2015. She now represents the 8th ward in the city, which covers part of downtown St. Louis, as well as Soulard, Benton Park, and Lafayette Square. Now, each of you will get a chance to answer each of the questions, respond to each other. We'll give about a minute to answer this first question here. We'll get underway. We'll start here with Mayor Jones. I think it's a pretty simple question. Why do you want to be the mayor of St. Louis?
Well, I think the question should be, why do I want to continue in this job? Being the mayor is a hard job. But I believe that we have made some really great progress over the last 4 years. When I came into office, we were still fighting COVID. Our homicides were at an all-time high, and over half of our city had been left to fail for over 50 years. And we've been able to make progress in those areas. In crime, our violence is down significantly. Homicides are down over 40%. Our youth-involved shootings are down over 50%, and our emergency response times are up over 60%. And we're making market investments in areas that need it most, because our city can't succeed if over half is left to fail, and I'm going to continue that progress.
Mayor, thank you for that answer, and we'll get to crime in just a moment. But first, Alderwoman Spencer, why do you want to be the mayor of St. Louis?
Well, David, I wanted to just say thanks for having us tonight. And before we get into policy, I just want to take a moment and recognize the officer who was injured this morning very gravely, and just recognize all of our first responders who put their lives on the line for us on a daily basis to help us make our city safer. I'm running for mayor because at the end of the day, very frankly speaking, I believe our city can do better. We can do better at filling potholes. We can do better at picking up the trash. We can do better at public safety. We can do better at just about everything. We've been losing population faster recently than we have over the last several decades, and it's time we get serious about doing the job of being a city, to position ourselves, our city, our greater region for growth, and to be the community that I know we can be if we get serious about doing the job that a city should do for its citizens.
All right, thank you both for answering that question and both outlining issues that we will be tackling over the next half hour. I want to dive right in. We have our first viewer question. This is from Teresa. I recently called 911 and was on hold for 8 minutes. The police arrived over an hour later. Can you tell me why dispatch and police are so slow to respond, and how will this be fixed? And to build on this question, I want to ask how each of you will make people feel safe in the city of St. Louis. Alderwoman Spencer, we'll start with you.
This is such an important issue. You know, just 4 years ago, we had close to 1,200 police officers on force, and as of right now, we have about 850. That's losing almost about 100 first responders, police officers on an annual basis. And that is why we're seeing wait times after we get through to 911 when we can for that police response. And you know, this is a life or death situation. I'm thinking of Ms. Cohen, who lost her life just last year waiting for first responders to respond. We have to do better. I think, you know, first and foremost, we have to have the staffing in our police department, in our 911 dispatch to be able to respond when emergencies arise, when violence is taking place. And you asked how we're going to make people feel safer, and it really starts with the very, very visible signs that we are down police officers. I'm talking about reckless driving. I'm talking about unlicensed vehicles. I'm talking about the very, very daily reminders that St. Louis has really become fairly lawless in a lot of ways, and that visible reminder that we don't have enough staffing is one of the first areas I'll tackle if I'm elected on April 8th.
Mayor Jones, the question was about 911 response and how will you make people feel safer in the city of St. Louis. How would you respond?
Well, we've made a lot of progress on 911 response. When I became mayor, we were answering 1 of every 2 calls within the first 10 seconds, and the national standard is 90%. We are now around 70 to 80% of calls get answered within the first 10 seconds, and that's because of some key changes that we made during my administration. Number 1, we are building a new 911 center and going to be combining all of our dispatchers under one classification. And we've been talking about building this new 911 center for over 20 years, and I'm the mayor that got it done and got it across the finish line and secured funding to do that. Number 2, we've hired more dispatchers and paid them more so we can make sure that we are answering calls in a timely fashion. And police are not always the answer when you call 911. We have embedded behavioral health professionals within 911, and we have alternative response methods in our cops and clinicians program and our non-police response.
I do want to ask a follow-up on that. Alderwoman Spencer will be able to weigh in, but you talked about how it's not always police on the ground that help fix that. I believe it's $45 million this new 911 dispatch center will make. Do your response times improve if you don't have enough people to respond to the crimes? That's a criticism that we get from viewers quite often.
Your response times improve when you have a myriad of choices because, again, police are not always the answer when you call 911. Sometimes that answer could be a social worker, which we have partners with behavioral health response, or it could be a co-responder model. But again, we want to make sure that we are sending the right professional to the right call.
Understood. And Alderwoman Spencer, very quickly, please, a response.
If we could talk a little bit about those 911 response times coming down, those quicker answering. We have now, under this administration, a new 911 answering system. Press 1 for fire, press 2 for EMS, hold on the line if your life is in danger. And that is a real breakdown in trust because that automated system is infuriating if you're witnessing violence, if you need medical assistance in an emergency manner. But again, it really comes down to staffing. If we want to see, and we do deserve to have emergency responders, police officers respond to violence, we have to staff them.
I don't think that you'll be surprised, though, that crime was the one thing that the residents were reaching out to the most. We talk about how crime is going down. St. Louis Police, the city administration, talking about your administration, talking about crime numbers are down, homicides are down. I believe youth violence is trending upward. Do we have a crime issue in the city of St. Louis? Because at the same time, we tout $2 billion plus of development. Is it a crime issue that our city struggles with? Or if everything is going down, is it a crime perception problem? How do you fix that?
Well, it takes a while for perception to catch up with reality, and but the numbers are clear that crime is coming down and we are making significant progress. As we sit here today, we have only had 16 homicides for the year. This time last year, it was upwards of 30. We're making progress. And I also want to make sure that we acknowledge that one life lost to gun violence is one too many. My family alone, I've lost 4 members to gun violence in the last 4 years that I've been mayor. So we want to make sure that we are celebrating the progress, but also acknowledging the pain that families feel after losing a loved one to gun violence.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next question here. This is from Antonio. He's asking in part, what specific strategies do you have to bring new businesses and economic opportunities to the city? Because the mayor just finished, I will have Alderwoman Spencer start this one.
Sure, and this goes into what I would have answered that last question with, and is that the number one reason people aren't coming to our city, the number one cited reason is crime. And so we have to get serious. We have to recognize that we do have a crime problem. We have a crime problem and we have a crime perception issue. Both of those things are reality. And until we get those things under control, until we really change the perception people have coming downtown, until people feel safer, that is the key piece to driving economic activity. We have to get serious about holding vacant property owners accountable, and we have to get serious about working with developers who want to come to our city and make the investments in our communities to see the economic growth that your viewer is asking for.
Mayor Jones, I'd like your response.
Well, we've seen over $2 billion in economic investments since I became mayor in 2021. Ask any of the businesses that have planted roots here. ICL, for example, is going to build a brand new $500 million facility in North St. Louis. Procter & Gamble, we went through a competitive process to expand their manufacturing facility on North Grand and I-70. And there have been other businesses that have decided to come to St. Louis since I've been mayor. So we are growing, and we are retaining businesses, and we're working with our partners at Greater St. Louis Inc., with the St. Louis Development Corporation to attract more businesses by going to where they are and recruiting them to come to St. Louis.
We've talked about how there's this population shift in the region, and because of that, we're also seeing families with kids leaving the city. I'd like to ask you both, what is the strategy? Because our city needs to have families with young children to be in our schools and to take jobs as they get older. Specific strategies to make sure that families with children are calling the city of St. Louis home.
We have to provide more affordable housing and build housing in other places in the city, and that's exactly what we are doing. I have a moonshot goal of building 10,000 more units by the year 2030, and we're already halfway there, or a third of the way there, with 3,500 affordable units that we built in the last 4 years.
So to do that, would you be willing to bulldoze historic buildings if that meant making more room for more housing?
No, we don't have to bulldoze anything. Have you been in North St. Louis? We have plenty of space to build, and we are building new homes in North St. Louis. Tabernacle CDC is now building homes on North Grand, and that neighborhood hasn't seen mortgage generation for 10 to 15 years. We have to spread out but beyond the Central Corridor and downtown and other nice neighborhoods to reclaim the neighborhoods that are north of Del Mar, to erase the Del Mar divide.
A recent study had the city, actually Missouri, I think, in the bottom 3 states across the country for housing availability, the housing market. So, Alderwoman Spencer, I do want to ask you, what is your strategy to bring in families?
Yeah, I mean, look, having moonshot goals is important, and we really should have them. But at the end of the day, we are losing population, and it's really concentrated in our North City neighborhoods, and people are not feeling safe. We are not delivering city services, the potholes, the trash I talked about at the front end of the segment, in a way that people feel like their investment makes sense. We have to make investing in North St. Louis a viable option for families. But the key really here is making our city safer. You know, when I talk to families that are leaving and choosing to go out to St. Louis County and leaving for other parts, it all comes down to safety. We have to get serious about safety, and we have to get serious about schools. One of the areas that I'll be focusing in, adding a new component to the mayor's office, would be somebody who is absolutely dedicated to working with St. Louis Public Schools and our school districts, our school system as a whole. We have a history of kind of having somebody involved in families and that sort of thing, but it is imperative that we are supporting SLPS and making sure that families feel like we have a quality path for educating their children in the city.
Can I address that for a second? Our Director of Children, Youth, and Families does work with SLPS and all of our educational partners. So when you say that you're going to put this person there, that person is already there. So, you know, that person already exists, and they go to school board meetings. They work with all of our educational partners to make sure our schools have a direct line to the mayor's office.
Well, with all due respect, you know, when last year when school was starting and there weren't buses provided, there were a whole host of issues that the mayor's office either didn't know about or chose not to get engaged in. And at the end of the day, we need an administration that's willing to dig in, identifying issues with the budget, with busing and with other issues, and willing to step in and help and assist the school board and those other elected leaders to solve those problems before parents like myself, an SLPS parent, was left stranded on day one without a bus to take my son to school.
Well, you don't know what our director was doing on the first.
Well, it wasn't effective,
weeks.
Mayor. With all due respect, many of us families and parents were left stranded last year. And my point is,
but then you
David,
need to take that up with the school district.
Well, my point is, Mayor, that we need a mayor that's willing to roll up their sleeves and have somebody involved in that process, supporting the school district, aware of those issues and part of the solutions.
And we are aware that right now the SLPS is through a time of transformation. We know that student enrollment is down. We know that there are a couple audits underway right now, including the state auditor's office.
Which I called for.
We'll go ahead and move on to the next topic, which is from our viewer, Leah. She writes, quote, Kara has focused on getting back to the basics, trash collection, filling potholes, hiring police. Mayor Jones has said the issues are related to staffing. What is Kara's plan for addressing these problems? Because she's called out in this, we'll start with you, Alderwoman.
Sure.
What is your plan?
The staffing issue is so important. I talked a little bit about our police department having lost so much staffing over the last 4 years. But that's true of other city departments. It starts with having the backs of our city employees, making sure that they're paid a wage that is commensurate and comparable to the regional averages. But it also just, listening and hearing and being part of the solutions. Right now, our refuse department doesn't have running water in their office, and they haven't for weeks. And when we have a city that doesn't really support our city employees the way that quality good employees really deserve, that is a major key factor in making sure that our departments are staffed the way that we need them to be to provide the city services we need.
I think for fairness, the city's had issues, not just under this administration, but the city, you can have folks having problems with city services going back several administrations. So in all fairness, Mayor Jones, you have been in this position now for 4 years. You're seeking a second term. What is the plan currently, and have you identified some fixes? Is there room for improvement here?
Yes, there's absolutely room for improvement. And I want to tell you some of the things we've already done. So personnel and hiring was a huge issue. When I became mayor in 2021, the personnel department was still using typewriters and triplicate paper. Everything was on paper. We have moved that process 100% online, and now our department directors can automatically receive the applicants that have made applications through the personnel department, and we've made that process much faster. It used to take up to 9 months to get a response from the personnel department when you put in an application. That was unacceptable. Now that process is down to 30 days, and in some departments you can get a call back within 24 to 48 hours. So we have sped up the hiring process significantly under my administration.
There was quite a bit of criticism following the snow. It was historic level snow. It took about a week, maybe even more, for an actual response from the city. That's the outlier. Let's talk about trash, because every city has trash. We need to take care of that. And again, like we just said, right? Some city service issues go back before your administration. They go into Mayor Cruzen's administration before her. But trash is such a basic city service. Why is this so difficult to figure out? And why can't we just have a fix for more consistent programming? It feels like one of those basic things that should be easy for a city. It hasn't proven to be.
Well, this is one of those problems that, again, predates my administration. The way that our trash trucks and our trash bins have been set up is so intricate in a way that no one can come in and help us when we have overflows. Only we can help ourselves. Our trash trucks can only pick up our trash bins. Yes, it's crazy. And so what we've done is put together a pilot program to see how we can change that across the city and put out more roll carts, because I get mine from a roll cart. I don't have a problem with trash. So we're looking at neighborhoods where we can put more roll carts out versus the alleyway trash that we currently have.
Oh, Alderwoman Smith, I want to make sure that you get a quick second here.
And I'm not on the roll cart system, so I certainly have an issue with trash like most of St. Louisans. And look, it is difficult to change things, but at the end of the day, shifting to a new dumpster system is something that we could have absolutely been using the COVID funds for. You asked why it's so difficult. It isn't. We really need to fully staff our refuse department. When I'm chair of budget, and when we got our budget last year, I'll tell you that the budget called for exactly the same number of E01 drivers as we have routes, making sure that none of our drivers had time to take off, had holidays, et cetera. We have to treat our employees the way we want them to work for our city. And we've been failing to have the backs of our employees for some time now. And until we do that, we're not going to be able to deliver the city services to the quality that your viewers are asking for.
Thank you for that answer. A quick response, please.
A quick response. As the chair of budget and public employees, you should have known that we had to have a stable budget from year to year because we were dealing with the remote worker refund issue. And so we had to make sure that the same number of, we had the same budget from year to year and very small increases. We have done everything that we know possible to hire drivers, and we are competing against the entire region here. And this is not just a St. Louis problem. It is a problem in every municipality.
With all due respect, we had a surplus of $42 million last year. Those cuts were not necessary. And at the end of the day, every other municipality municipality in the St. Louis region has been able to hire refuse workers, been able to pay them a wage and treat them in a way that they stay on board and they do the services that are required for a municipality.
And once again, you're gaslighting.
I want to interject real quick, please,
once
Mayor,
again,
because
you're
there's a
gaslighting.
lot of municipalities that are having issues right now with hiring.
Okay.
So I don't think it's fair to say just the city of St. Louis. There are municipalities across our region and across the country that are having a staffing issue because of the workforce issue.
David,
Right.
but the issues
labor
are-
shortage is real. And once again, as chair of the Budget and Public Employees Committee, you would know that that surplus was eaten away by the remote worker tax refund that we had to pay over $40 million to people that filed a remote worker tax refund during COVID. So that you can't just say that we had a surplus, because that's patently false.
At the end of the day, trash service has gotten worse. The complaints have gone up over the last 4 years, and residents are frustrated. That's end of sentence.
And as the chair of Budget and Public Employees, have you actually figured out why?
We don't have the employees to pick up the trash.
Do you know why we don't have the employees?
We're not paying them, and we
That's
don't have their backs.
That is not
Mayor,
true.
have you talked to our refuse workers?
Yes, I have. I talk to them all the
with all due
time.
respect, my conversations with our refuse workers center around not having water in their facilities, not feeling appreciated, not appreciating being docked for snow removal, and all sorts of issues of morale within all city departments.
Well, again, you're gaslighting people, so go ahead.
We're going to
and
move on to the
continue
next
lies.
subject here. This is a question from our viewer, Scott, and it is our final viewer question of the night. He's asking, quote, "Why should I continue to live here? After multiple car break-ins, being repeatedly harassed while bicycle commuting and having bullets land on my roof, causing multiple rainwater leaks, I am done. So I ask you again, why should I continue to stay here?" We'll start with Alderwoman Spencer here for this.
Scott, that's heartbreaking. I'm a cyclist and I cycle almost every day, and I get harassed, unfortunately, far too often. But why you should continue to live here? Because St. Louis is a phenomenal city and our assets are off the charts. We are a great place to live. We have the Arch, we have phenomenal parks, we have tremendous places to go out and eat and to just enjoy life. But I do hear you, and I will tell you that if I'm elected on April 8th, we will do better. We'll get back to the basics. We will focus our city government on making sure that our neighborhoods are safer, that our bike lanes are protected, that our streets are cleaned, and that our garbage is picked up. So hang tight, Scott. We can do better.
Mayor Jones, I'd like to ask you, why should Scott want to stay in the city of St. Louis and live here?
Well, Scott, I have also had a chance to ride my bike throughout the city, but I will tell you that we are making those investments in our bike ped facilities. We just hired a new bike ped coordinator who's going to be working with our streets department to make sure that we have more protected bike lanes all across the city. And also we're expanding the Greenway, which means that you'll be able to safely go from Forest Park to the Arch, from Fairgrounds, all the way to Tower Grove Park. And we're expanding our bike ped facilities, and our Friendly Streets initiative is going to make our streets safer no matter how you choose to get around.
Mayor Jones, Alderwoman Spencer, thanks for answering those questions. I would like to ask now that we give a chance for each of you to ask something of your opponent. So Mayor Jones, we'll start with you. Would you please, do you have a question for Alderwoman Spencer that you'd like to ask?
Alderwoman Spencer, you've been on the board for about 10 years, and I'd like to know, I think the people would like to know, how is it that you have no experience being an executive, and how are you going to lead the city with no experience in municipal executive office?
Well, Mayor, this is an interesting question. You know, we just came out of a presidential cycle where a lot of pundits and people really focused on this lack of experience question, or this experience question, I should say, when it came to Vice President Kamala Harris. And they pointed to her lack of executive experience. But I have to tell you, Mayor, experience isn't excellence. They're not equal. And at the end of the day, as serving as an alderperson for 10 years, I've got some big wins and I've gotten some big things done. I've helped turn around the trajectory of the Cherokee Street and the neighborhoods around that. I've helped those communities grow. I've helped solve major issues, thinking outside the box, passing the city's first meaningful gun legislation in well over a decade, and holding problematic landlords like Paul McKee accountable for the first time in our city's history. And, you know, I know know we can do better. When it comes to picking up the trash, filling potholes, and public safety, the first step is recognizing we have a problem. St. Louis, we have a problem. We have solutions. We can put GPS on our trash trucks. We can support our city workers across city departments. And yes, we can crack down on unlicensed vehicles and reckless driving. And so my question to you, Mayor, would be, why aren't we doing those things? Why aren't we having the backs of our city employees? How is it that I will tell you, I had the most hope when you were elected. I came to your inauguration. I stood there proudly and supported you. I supported your staff, and I worked with trying to present solutions to your office to make our city work better. And my question to you is, when you're focused on North St. Louis, we are seeing population loss. We're losing diversity. We are failing with SLDC. Why is it that we still continue to have issues in every single department, and instead of facing them head on, and addressing a loss of diversity, we are pretending like we're doing well?
Well, I don't think that we have a lack of diversity in the city of St. Louis. The region, we are #1 in the country for the most foreign-born individuals that are relocating to the city of St. Louis and to the region. And that's why I stood up the Office of New Americans, to make sure that our new St. Louisans have everything they need when it comes to jobs, housing, and whatever else they need to thrive. And the buck stops with me. And we are absolutely tackling the issues that we need to move this city forward. But being mayor is a hard job. And if you think it's easy, then I got a bridge to sell you. First off, we were in COVID when I became mayor in 2021. We had to get out of a hiring freeze. Homicides were at an all-time high. And yes, North St. Louis had not been invested in decades. And we cannot succeed or grow as a city if over half is left to fail. And that's been the case for decades in the city of St. Louis. If we believe in equity, if we believe in moving our city forward, we have to pay attention to all of our city. And that's exactly what I've been doing as mayor for the last 4 years.
And finally, in brief, real quick, can you say something positive about your opponent first? We'll start with Alderwoman Spencer.
Sure. I have to give the mayor credit for the Office of Violence Prevention. I think thinking outside the box, thinking about crime and addressing crime in creative ways is important. And I think the Office of Violence Prevention is something that not only I admire about your administration, but would absolutely keep if I was elected.
Mayor Jones.
I want to commend the Alderwoman for the gun bill that she did pass. It has allowed us to take 40 guns off of the cities, off of people who should not have guns so far.
All right, Mayor Jones, Alderwoman Spencer, thank you so much for joining us. That concludes our event tonight, our 2025 mayoral coverage. We thank you for joining us here on First Alert 4. Of course, there is still time for you to participate, of course, as we have early voting underway, of course. We want to make sure that your voice is heard. Election Day is April 8th, but of course you can cast your vote right now with Execute Absentee Voting. Stay connected on First Alert 4 and our app.